Okay. Welcome everyone. We are here, Parshas tchanan, Erev Shabbos Nachamu, and Erev Tu B'Av, the 15th of Av. A couple of announcements before we start. Number one, next week, Thursday, Be'ezras Hashem, I will not be here to give a shiur. We're going to be away a little bit. So that's that. You can Google and you can go into her anytime and find an old shiur if you really must. Number two, Tanya. We have to thank Tanya. She's soon leaving us for Eretz Yisrael. Tanya is in my house every morning at 6 a.m. preparing these notes. Well, Thursdays we do this. On the other mornings we do something else. And you wouldn't be having these without Tanya. So she is great. But we're going to continue this via Skype, and we'll try to keep having these sheets available after she leaves. Number three, we are devoting the learning today Le'iloi Nishmas, the son Avinoam of our good friend Rachel Grossman. His name is Avinoam ben Shmuel, Rachel and Shmuel. Avinoam ben Shmuel Aaron. The yahrzeit is today Yud Dalid Av. And there's somebody here from Eretz Yisrael who has a cause. If anyone wants to speak to her afterwards, just raise your hand. She's here if anyone is looking for where to give their tzedakah money. Okay. Now, our class today.
Can we dedicate the class also to a Jewish lady to Meredith Farrell?
Refuah Shalema, should be Hebrew name, let me know. Refuah Shalema to Meredith.
Rachel Miriam Bat Shifra Yenta.
Rachel Miriam, same person? Rachel Miriam Bat Shifra Yenta. And Chai Rezel Bastina, of course. And all the cholim. Okay. Ready to start? So, in the last few weeks, we have been developing an idea, a fundamental idea, and we are now going to go further using one line, one pasuk from our parsha to key in, to focus in on one aspect of this relationship between man and God that we've been speaking about. And it will relate to Tu B'Av, and it will relate to Shabbos Nachamu, and it will relate to our pasuk, which is V'ahavta es Hashem Elokecha b'chol levavcha. Love Hashem with your whole heart. But Levavacha is spelled with two bases, and Rashi says, as you see in your sheets, with both of your inclinations. That's what we're going to be focusing on. But first, let's remember where we are, philosophically, okay? So we've been speaking about the following idea. We've been speaking about the correct Jewish perspective on Hashem's relationship to humanity and to the Jewish people in particular, which we will spend a little extra time on. You can find this developed in the shiurim that are on Torah Anytime and on Facebook. Esther Wien on Facebook, Esther Wien Teacher actually. In Matos, where we call the shiur Why Morals and Ethics Are Not Jewish Values. And you can find us revisit this idea in the 4-part series that we did in the 9 days, which is also on both Torah Anytime and Facebook. The idea we're speaking about is that we do not view humanity, the creation, as some type of object outside of Hashem, that Hashem takes care of and is in charge of and does chesed to. We don't think like that at all. There are too many philosophical problems with it. Can't be right. There is nothing outside of Hashem, period. And so the view the Jewish people have, as expressed by the Rambam, which we read, and Rav Yasher Ber Soloveitchik, we read, is that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is everything. Remember this? There is nothing else, period. And HaKadosh Baruch Hu allows an endless, practically infinite amount of versions of his reality, of his truth, of his mitzius, true existence, to come into existence. The Bria, both physical and metaphysical, the creation, physical, metaphysical, is a version of HaKadosh Baruch Hu that is allowed to, that is invited to exist and participate in Hashem's own existence. Meaning, the mashal we gave was what? Imagine a mother pregnant with billions of children. We said that the mother does not feed every single fetus individually. What does the mother do in order for all the fetuses to live? She eats. She exists. Now Hashem doesn't eat, but the point is that the mother's existence by definition, is the cause of all of the offspring, the creation's existence. The mother, in the human model, doesn't do anything directly for the child. She just eats, and the child is sustained. Hashem exists, and because we are participating like the fetus and the mother in Hashem's existence, we exist. There is nothing outside of that. There is no alternative and there is no options. It's all it is. Even, although it's hard to understand, and we spoke about this in terms of evil, we did it last Thursday, it's online. Even the Nazis, as they were doing what they did, were breathing Hashem's air, their bodies were functioning because Hashem exists. If Hashem didn't exist, they wouldn't exist. And if they exist, it's only because they're part of Hashem's existence. Now, the word participate can throw some people off. We don't mean that they're actively cooperating with Hashem's plan, but at the same time, they're existing entirely because Hashem exists, and they're part of Hashem's existence. Now, we also spoke about last week Nekama and Nechama, that somehow, some way, Hashem uses everything that is part of his existence to further Hashem's plan, whether we understand how that works or not. Sometimes we see how it works, as in the case of, who's the classic case who thought he was outside of God, opposing God, undermining God's will, but really he was a tool. Hashem used his own choices as a tool in Hashem's own, right, to promote Hashem's causes. Bilam, Haman, we talked about Haman. Right, Haman, remember that? That's Nekama. Nekama is not Hashem saying, oh, you did that to me? Just watch what I could do to you. Because we're right after Tisha B'Av here. There's a lot of people that have been very bad to the Jewish people and caused us a terrible amount of pain and suffering and still want to. And we like to think of them as like Rishayim, who we're going to speak about soon, who are outside of the story, Hashem's will, and opposing Hashem's will, like a devil and a God. The Christians have their God, we can't say it here, and the anti-God, okay? We don't have such a concept. There is no such concept. We have a Yetzer Hara, we have what we call a Satan, but there's no that is absolutely completely within the participating in Hashem's existence. We'll talk about that. So anybody who's in is in. If they think they're out, there is no out. There is no such thing as out. Ein od milvado. So it's nothing but Hashem. So those that think they're out, they're the blind ones. They get into this whole frenzy of trying to oppose Hashem while they're participating in Hashem's own existence, and they're part of it. They can't, really, maybe for a little bit, it looks like they are, they do some damage, but in the big picture, when history's all said and done, Hashem has a zillion calculations. Somehow or another, what they're doing is used by Hashem to be very much part of Hashem's plan and Hashem's goal, and it leads directly to the furthering of Hashem's ultimate plan for everybody. But at the same time that we are all participating in Hashem's existence, this is where we have to understand this is a very strange predicament. We also feel very separate and very independent, and that's because why? Because Hashem does what? Hashem does what? Conceals himself. That's like the mother pulls back kind of behind the uterine walls, and still is the cause of the fetus's existence, but there's a barrier. There's like this filter. There's this actual machita that doesn't let the fetus see the mother. So Hashem does that too, but it's not physical. Hashem creates virtual barriers in our head that while we are participating in Hashem's existence, we have the capacity to not be aware of that at all, and to feel that we are totally independent and totally free, and it's all about us, and we live alone here in this world. And if we're alone, then that's a scary place to be, because this is a big world, and there's a lot of frightening phenomenon, like natural phenomenon out there, and other people who are also trying to exist. And suddenly, if we feel alone, and we don't realize this dynamic that we're participating in Hashem's existence, but we're given the ability to feel autonomous and separate so that we can do our job as being individuals, right? Co-creating with Hashem. If we don't get this right, two things can happen. We spoke about this. If we feel totally encompassed in Hashem's existence, then what happens to us? No, if we feel totally encompassed by Hashem's existence. If we're like the fetus whose the uterine walls are completely transparent. then what happens to us? Paralysis, we're a non-entity, we abdicate everything, self-abnegation, total bittul, total non-self. Who am I to add anything? What am I here to do? Listen, everybody knows ani, flip the words I in. In 1 second I am not here. It's all by Hashem's will. I'm just the will of Hashem in physical form. So I don't really exist, and what can I really contribute? That's what we'll call, by the way, hevel. We spoke about that. And then if a person says, I'm all alone here, these walls are very thick, there is nothing besides me, and it's me against everyone. Then what happens? Who do we become? That's called Kayin, and what happens? We become narcissistic, and we live off fear. We instrumentalize everything, right? And we use everybody, even the Torah, even Hashem. We did all this, okay? So the trick is getting the balance right. There is only one reality. We are in it. There is no such thing as being outside of it. If we think we are, it's our fantasy, okay? We might as well give up our fantasy because we're in, and we might as well get started with what we're here to do, which feels actually the best when we do it and makes us actually happy, and that is be partners with Hashem, co-creating in this world what? Truths. What type of truth? So we read the pasuk in Yirmiyahu a couple weeks ago, chesed, mishpat, tzedakah, and the mitzvos, as Rambam says, all the mitzvahs are really important to care about because they lead us down the path to being people that get it right, that have the balance, to know who we are, where we come from, what we're doing, our cause, our purpose, that we're participating but we're separate. By the way, as a parent, this is exactly the dynamic to get right. The child, you give birth to a child. The child lives in your household. Your lights, your heat, your car, your food. It's a household. They're participating in your existence. But as they get a little older, they feel very separate, very independent. They start taking the whole participation thing for granted. They're eating our food, they're living in our house, they're living off everything we have, they're being given all the protection and the security and everything, and then they act as if they're independent, all alone, they owe nothing to nobody, no gratitude to anything. Like that's the phase, whatever you call that phase, that horrible monster phase. But it passes, hopefully. And that's the dynamic. Now listen. What's the right balance? Gratitude for what we are able to participate in, and confidence and security that we are independent and meant to do something unique with the support and the love of the mother, right? That or the HaKadosh Baruch Hu that we are part of. It's a balance, okay? Now, what could happen is, okay, okay, let's say it this way. Let's be very clear about it. It is religion and nothing but religion that allows people to see the world this way. That we are part of something greater than ourselves. That is a religious idea. And it's not just Jewish. Baruch Hashem, the Jews have succeeded in our mission as Or Lagayim, and other nations understand this too. We are light to the nations, and they've learned. Thank God, they were supposed to learn. And they know that it is totally religious to understand that we are part of something greater than us. Hashem is our creator, and Hashem is what we are part of. And it's us who blind ourselves to Hashem, and it's not Hashem who isn't there. And it is us who let ourselves eat from the tree and become beset with every fear in the universe and instrumentalize everybody else. That's our doing. And that's what leads to all the misery and suffering that humans perpetrate upon each other in this world. Okay? It is religious to understand what we're part of, and it is also religious to understand that if we are all participating in Hashem's existence, then what's best for us and what makes us happy and what's natural for us is that we allow others to participate in our existence. That being in a relationship, having a marriage, which is a goal, and an ideal clearly, and children, they are not impositions, they are not burdens, children, they don't get in our way and take our money and our time. The more people that can participate in our existence, the more godly we are. And the more we get to participate in other people's existence, the more godlike that is. That is the godly relationship. So, knowing that we're part of God and then having others be part of our world, that's religious. That comes from a religious worldview. When that gets lost, when we drift away from that, it gets very ugly, as we'll see later on in the class. Okay, so what we're going to talk about now is this dynamic is expressed in This dynamic is expressed in this pasuk. Everybody turn to the pasuk on top of the sheet. Okay, you see it? Okay. V'ahavta es Hashem Elokecha b'chol levavcha u'b'chol nafshecha b'chol modecha. Everybody see it? All right. Now these ideas, by the way, are from my grandfather Rav Schwab, the Mayan Beis HaShoeva. Now this is all in Hebrew. Luckily for everybody, my Uncle Meyer in Denver took about 40 to 50% of these ideas and put them in English with stories and anecdotes from my grandfather's life. And now it's called Rav Schwab on Chumash in English. It's beautiful if anybody wants it. And we have a photocopy of this piece today for you in the handouts. So these are all based on my grandfather's ideas, essentially. Not entirely, but I'll tell you where we go. We draw on other people's ideas. So what is Rashi bringing from, the Rashi quotes from the oral law. What does he say on the funny spelling of B'chol Levavcha, with your whole heart, loving Hashem with your whole heart? There are two, what's the issue with this word? There's two bases. We don't have two hearts. We do have two chambers of our heart, 4 chambers of our heart, a right side, a left side. But we don't have two hearts. So what is B'chol Levavcha? 2 bases here. So what does Rashi say based on the oral law? Let's just read the first few words. With your 2 inclinations. What are they called? Yetzer Hara and the Yetzer Hatov. Now, normally, let's get deeper now. Normally, how do you describe the Yetzer Hara? In Christian terms, devil. In Islamic terms, a Satan that's there to destroy you. These are not Jewish at all. They're not ours. Okay, so what is the Yetzer Hara? Well, how do we know they're not ours? First of all, the classic view of the Yetzer Hara is something that you could see from the Gemara. Okay, this sounds like the Yetzer Hara. Okay, look at the Gemara. Sukkah 52b. Yitzro shel adam miskaber alav b'chol yom. The Yetzer of a person overpowers him, tries to overpower him every single day. Umavakesh lamiso, and seeks to kill him, as it says in Tehillim. Sofer Rasha l'Tzaddik umavakesh lamiso. A Rasha, okay, a wicked person, looks at the righteous person, and seeks to kill him. And if not for HaKadosh Baruch Hu's help, we would not be able to withstand it. Okay, so it sounds very much like the classic view. There's something wicked. There's a Yetzer Hara, or that maybe the person with the Yetzer would be the Rasha, and every day they're empowered even more. And they're trying to kill the Tzaddik. Okay, the Rasha clearly is trying to kill the Tzaddik. You see that? That's the proof text. Sofer Rasha l'Tzaddik umavakesh lamiso. The Rasha has his eye on the Tzaddik and is trying to kill him. Okay, let's figure out what that means. Now look what I did. I left a blank because we really have to translate the word Rasha correctly. The blank watches the righteous seeking to put him to death. Okay. Another way that people think about the Yetzer Hara, or the Rasha that's trying to kill the Tzaddik, or the Yetzer of a person that's empowered every day and trying to attack him, is from a pasuk in Bereshis that we believe describes the inclination to sin as some type of vicious beast crouching at the door. You all read David Foreman's book? Good. Okay. However, the word crouching, we didn't include the word crouching in our English translation here because crouching is not the right definition for the word rovet. So look at the Hebrew. Halo imte tivseis. If you do right, there is uplift. You'll do fine. Vim lo, but if not, vim lo tetiv, but if you don't do good. Now these are the 3 words. Lepetach, chatat, rovetz. At the doorway, not in the doorway, but towards the doorway. Lepetach, towards the doorway. It's not in yet. Okay? Chatat, sin, is rovetz. What is rovetz? We didn't translate it because it is not crouching. And what is it? The chukaso, and to you is his chuka, is yearning. We'll also translate chuka. And what does it say? Va'ata timshol bo. And you will dominate it. So it's at the doorway, it's rovetz, and you should control it. So, turn the page to the back. What is rovetz? We don't have Rasha, Tanya?
I'll make
I'll make photocopies of them.
Yeah, make Rasha. We'll do rovates first. Okay, what is rovates? You're going to look at these three proof texts, and you're going to tell me, okay, what it means. And don't look at the English so much because, again, the English is not so right. So let's do them together. You know this one, Tehillim 23:2. Bin od desha yarbitzeini, v'almei menuchot yinahaleni. What's David HaMelech saying here? Bin od desha, in beautiful green pastures. What's yarbitzeini from rovates? Lays me down peacefully, calmly, right? V'almei menuchot, and by peaceful waters, yinahaleni, right? He leads me to peaceful waters. Does this sound like something crouching to attack? Is that what David HaMelech is trying to say? Clearly not. This is my grandpa. I remember him telling us this. Next, Yisachar. Yisachar and Zvulun. Remember them? Who's Yisachar? Right. Who's who? Who's who? Yeah, I know, but who's the worker and who's the learner? Let's quickly look at that. You have your Chamashim in front of you? Okay. But what does it sound like here? Do we know which one it is? Huh?
Carries the burden.
What burden? Which one is Yisachar and which one is the learner? Yisachar is the learner. But look at this. Yisachar chamor gorem. Look at this. Rovates bin hamishpatayim. Yisachar is a strong-boned ass, a donkey. Rovates ben hamishpatayim, crouching among the sheepfolds. What does this mean, crouching? Yisachar is powerful. It bends down to take on the burden. We're speaking about the burden of the sheep, right? The sheep are the Hashem's flock, the burden of Torah. This is not who's Yisachar attacking? This is not attacking. This is bending to take a burden. This is bending down. This is in peacefulness, in a passive, not passive in terms of attacking. This is someone cooperating. Rovates doesn't mean crouching to attack here at all. It means bending oneself to cooperate, to take a burden. See that? Next. Look in Shemos. Ki tireh chamor sanacha, rovates tachas maso. You see the donkey of your enemy doing what under its burden? Collapsed. Rovates, breaking down, collapsed under its burden. What's the mitzvah? So what does rovates mean? It doesn't mean crouching. What does it mean? Bearing the burden, laying door peacefully, not stirred up, right? At rest, calm. That's what it means. Now, if that's what rovates means, then this pasuk that Hashem says to Cain, Pesach chatas rovates va'ata timshol bo. At the doorway, sin is what? Not crouching to attack you, laying peacefully, willing to accept its job. Okay? And what should you do? You should dominate it. In other words, what would normally lead a person to sin isn't sin. It's natural human drives and inclinations that are waiting to be directed and channeled correctly. They're at the doorway, though. If you invite them in, these drives and temptations, to take over your life, they will, and then they'll attack you, and then there will be sin. That's what it means. Sin is when we invite them in when we invite them in to become dominant. What's supposed to happen is that those things that lead a person to sin are meant to never really have a life of their own. All our temptations, all our urges, whether they be physical, food and clothing, shelter, and our ego needs, and our needs for survival and for security, these things are supposed to be tools ready to be channeled and not to overwhelm us. Now go back to our model. If we know that we're participating in Hashem's existence, thank you. If we know that we're participating in Hashem's existence, then we know that Hashem also concealed himself. And Hashem put us in this physical world. And what did Hashem do for us? He gave us our own independent existence, and he gave us a physical life. And our physical life needs certain ingredients for it to go on. It needs food, it needs clothing, it needs reproduction, procreation. It needs a sense of self. It needs a sense of self, an ego. Okay? When we feed all of these hungers, which we need to survive, in other words, when we give ourselves the nutrition we need, the food, the sleep, the sexual outlet, even the sense of honor, kavod, self-esteem, when we give ourselves these things, Hashem made it that it's also pleasurable. So what we need to survive is also something that gives us great pleasure. And when we acknowledge that this all comes from Hashem, it just makes us be more aware of this gift of life and the brilliance, the genius of it all. However, if a person lets that uterine wall close in on them and they believe they're all alone and they don't want to know where they come from and what they're part of because they just want to give in to their urges now and not use them for any greater cause, okay? Then they go blind purposefully, or because society tells them they may, they might, or they must. And then their urges, which are meant to be tools to actually bring us closer to Hashem and give us pleasure and sustain us at the same time, have a life of their own. They dominate the person. They become monsters. They take over the person, and that's where sin comes from. But what are we supposed to do? They're there for us. But we direct them. We channel them. Ata timshol bo. You keep it under control. Think about a child. A child has all kinds of urges. If a parent does not assert a certain control and a certain direction and help the child channel all their needs and feelings, they'll go wild. The child actually wants to be directed and wants rules and wants order and wants to know what's right and wrong. They want it. And if you don't give them what they want, they will become big problems and attack the parent that's not, or society that's not setting an order for them. So that's what rovates means. So first of all, the Yetzer Hara we're learning right now is not from this we know, it's not some beast crouching at a door that's trying to kill you. That's not what the Yetzer Hara is at all. We didn't get to the actual Yetzer Hara, but we're speaking at least the temptations, the urges, they're not that. Now what's Rasha? Okay? The Gemara said that we do have a Yetzer Hara, and it's very, very aggressive. And every day it wants to attack us. And the pasuk that it brings as a proof text is from Tehillim. Look, the Rasha looks at the Tzaddik and tries to kill him. What is this Rasha, this Yetzer Hara beast? Okay, let's see what that person is. What is the proper definition of Rasha? It's very important to sort out all these words. Yetzer Hara, Rovates, Rasha, Tzaddik, Ra. We're going to work with all these words today. What is a Rasha? So look at these texts. You have four proof texts here, 4 psukim. Ashrei Ish, look at the first one, Tehillim 1:1. Fortunate is the person, Asher lo halach, who did not go, did not follow, Ba'atas Rashayim, he did not walk with Rashayim. So Rashayim is associated with walking. Let's just keep that in mind. Okay? Associated with walking. That's one thing. Number 2, look at Yeshayahu. V'harashayim kayam nigrash, they're like a troubled sea. Okay? They are a troubled sea. Ki hashked lo yuchal, cannot rest. Whose waters toss up mire and mud. So what is Rasha? Churning, turbulent, no rest, picking up mud, throwing mud all around. It's chaos. Okay? Next, Shmuel. After Shaul had secured his kingship over Israel, he waged war on every side against all his enemies, against the Moabites, Ammonites, Edomites, Philistines, and the king of Zobah. And look at the words, Ubechol asher yifne yarshia. And everywhere he turned, what did he do? He didn't become a Rasha. He sent them into turmoil. They went crazy. They started, it was chaos. Chaos ensued. They started running, trying to fight themselves, trying to hide, trying to escape, just everywhere he turned, there was turmoil. Okay? Next, Eov. Talking about Hashem. V'hu yashkid, he is silent. Umi yarshia. Now, condemn is not the right word here. Umi yarshia, who will stir it up? Hashem is silent. It's comparing Rasha to quiet. Hashem makes quiet, who can stir it up? Any nation, any man, right? If Hashem makes quiet, Umi yarshia, who can stir it up? So what Rasha means, and these quotes all come from the Ebenezer, brings them all down on the first pasuk in Tehillim, explaining what Rasha means. This really, Ebenezer compiles these three. Ebenezer. So what Rasha means is tumult, turmoil, inconsistency, all over the place, chaos, lurching from here to here, lurching everywhere, going, chaos around, mess, confusion. That's what Rasha means. You see that? What is a tzaddik? Look at the pasuk. This is from Vayikra. Where's the exact quote? It's Vayikra. Mazne, we don't have the pasuk here, but it's from Vayikra. Mazne tzedek, honest weights. Okay, an honest balance, honest weights, honest ephah, honest hin. What are we talking about? What's an hin tzedek? Hin is a measure of liquid. Okay, when you have a scale, all right? When you have a scale, which is called Moznei Tzedek, you have a scale. So how do you measure something? Somebody puts an apple on one side, and you want to see what that apple weighs, right? So what you do is you take a stone. You have a 1 ounce stone, a 1.5 ounce stone, or whatever measure they use, the grams, 10 grams, 20 grams, 100 grams, whatever. You put the weights on the other side, and when it's balanced, you know exactly what the apple weighs. Okay, now, those stones have to be precise. A 1/2 ounce or 100 grams has to be precisely 100 grams every single time. When somebody says, I want a hin of wine, which is a liquid measure, like a liter, you have a pitcher that is precisely a hin. You fill it up with wine and you give it to them. They get a hin of wine. It has to be precise. A hin tzedek, an even tzedek, moznei tzedek. It's exactly the same, precisely all the time. You know what's a tzaddik? Consistent. You know what's a Rasha? Inconsistent. That's the definitions of the words. A tzaddik is a person that is always consistent, which in our big picture means they always understand the balance between their participating as part of Hashem's existence and their separateness and individuality that Hashem allows us. They always see both. And they stay consistent. So they take what Hashem gives us in the physical world and they use it for Hashem's purposes. But it's also pleasurable to do that at the same time. They keep and they stay consistent. The Rasha is the person that lurches from moments or epiphanies, moments of clarity. I know I'm part of Hashem's existence. I'm crazy for thinking that I'm all alone here, from being afraid, from going blind, for giving into my temptations, for not doing what I'm meant to be doing here, which is co-create something of value with Hashem instead of just indulging myself. And Rishayim, Malayim, Rata, they're always regretting that they went blind, I goofed again, I lost it. And they try, and then they have a good day, and then they forget it all. And then they have a horrible day, and they go from blindness to sight, to blindness to sight, seeing, not seeing, self, God, like it's all confusing. It's one big chaos. That's a Rasha. Okay, we use the word Rasha to mean like Hitler, but it's really not the right definition. That's really an oyev, an enemy. Now, an enemy will be always blind to a truth and will be entirely inconsistent. And in other words, there won't be any consistency. They'll be always on the other side. They'll be consistent in the rishus, you might say. But that's more like an oyev or a soneh. Okay, an enemy is someone who hates us, who hates Hashem. Chas v'shalom, we can't even really say that. So this is a Rasha and a tzaddik. So if a Rasha is a person who's basically inconsistent, that's why, by the way, a person on Rosh Hashanah is not supposed to think of themselves as a tzaddik and not supposed to think of themselves as a Rasha, but supposed to think of themselves as a Beinoni, because we do lurch from the one to the other continuously. The question is, what are we more? That's what we're really judged on Rosh Hashanah. What are we more? Are we more consistent or are we more inconsistent? That's really when it said Rambam explains in Hilchos Tshuva that Hashem puts all our mitzvos on one side and all our averos on the other side, and it's not quantity, it's quality. And he says, and whoever has more mitzvos is a tzaddik, and whoever has more averos is a Rasha. That's all imagery. What it means is the judgment of Hashem is, what are you more? It's not about each and everything you did, but what are you in general? Are you more consistent or more inconsistent? More tzaddik or more Rasha? Now, so if sin is not crouching to get us, and if a Rasha is an inconsistent person who wakes up with eyes open, eyes closed, what is this Yetzer Hara, okay, that we have to serve Hashem with? Let's try to define it further. First of all, let's define the words Yetzer, and let's define the words Ra, okay? So, we're on the back of page 1. Okay, Yetzer and Ra. So what is Yetzer? We have Bria and Yetzira. What is Bria? Yesh me'ayin, creating something from nothing. And who can do that? Hashem can make yesh me'ayin. Actually, we also do it. We'll talk about how in a second. What is Yetzira? Yesh me'yesh. We take something from something. Notice, okay, let's just talk about making yesh me'ayin, something from nothing. Okay? Take the word ani, I, which if we go blind to the big picture, we think I exist independently. But we said before, flip the letters, and from ani you get ayin. The other side of it is like there's no ani at all. It's like hevel, like I don't even exist. There's just Hashem, and my existence is a figment of Hashem's imagination, so to speak, that I should exist. And right? So that's the ayin. What is yesh me'ayin? This is our job. We are supposed to make yesh, something substantial, which, by the way, is the Rasha Tevas, the what's it called, the Rasha Tevas? Acronym? What's it called? Yeah, for Yiras Shemayim. Aware of Hashem above us. Yiras Shemayim. Okay? If we take the ani or the ayin, either side of the spectrum, okay, that I'm everything or I'm nothing, and we have an awareness of Hashem, we go back into balance. Okay, so we're supposed to create yesh from the ayin, from the void. The void could be that I'm zero, or the void could be that I'm everything. They're both a void of understanding. Okay, but it's a yesh from ayin. In any case, that we do. But beyond that bria, then that's really creating something like something new. We create ourselves, and by choosing to view the world this way, which is, by the way, the most logical way to view the world. Let's be honest, because it makes the most sense. If we choose to see the world this way, to keep our focus on it, we create out of ourselves something real. Yesh, something real. If we don't see the world like this, we really don't create much out of ourselves, we just spin our wheels. But this is Bria. But Yetzira, because we're talking about Yetzer Hara, Yetzer Tov, Yetzira is Yesh Me'yesh. We form something from the raw materials we're given. So it goes in order, just like in the Torah. First, there's Bria. First, we decide that we're going to make something out of ourselves, which comes from Yesh. We're going to make Yesh. Out of the Ayin, we're going to have Yer Shemayim. We're going to get it. We're going to see the whole picture. And we're going to make something out of ourselves. Now, what do? Now we look at ourselves. We take stock of who we are, the big picture, not just our physical body, but everything about us, and even our situation, who our parents are, what generation it is, what our abilities are, what's going on in the world, the whole thing. We take stock. And we're going to form the raw material into something that has like contours, that's describable. Okay, that's when we take ourselves. Once we've made the decision to be something, all right, now we form it. Now, that's the koach hayetzer. It's the creative urge, or let's call it the creative energy. But creative gets us confused. Just semantics. Often we use create with bria, and form with Yetzira. Don't get all confused. In general, we're talking about making something out of ourselves. Yetzira, okay, it should be formative energy, but people like to use the word creative energy. Yetzira means we take who we are, what we've been given, and we form something out of ourselves with our own raw material. That's our creative energy. Now, that's drive, that's ambition, that's excitement, that's enthusiasm, that's individuality, that's purpose, that's all those emotions that Tzel Melokim in us, right? That comes from having the big picture in place. Now, what do we do with this creative urge? We could either marry it to our neshama, our soul, which makes it very, very productive. It's called the Yetzer Hatov. Okay? By the way, Tov is gematria what?
It's 15.
17. Tov is 17. By the way, we once mentioned it's the 17 days from Lag BaOmer to Matan Torah is 17 days. Remember that? When we start like deciding to make something out of ourselves after the first part where we didn't, where we were very alone and afraid, and that's why there was sinas chinam and everybody didn't give each other respect, right? Remember that? That was the up to Lag BaOmer. That's, by the way, those 34 days leading up to Lag BaOmer, actually Lag BaOmer's 33, that's the gematria of kavod. There was a lack of sense of who I am. But we've spoken about this in the past. Anyway, Tov, Yetzer Tov. We take all these creative energies and we marry them, we link them, we handcuff them to the neshama, the higher parts of us, the part that sees what we're part of and what our purpose is. And that's a healthy use of our koach ha-yetzer, creative energy, and it's called the Yetzer Tov. But what we could do is we also have the capacity to take all that creative energy and marry it to what's called the Ra. And we didn't define Ra yet. What is Ra? So let's see. When a human being eats just because they're hungry, they don't care if it's Yom Kippur and they don't care if it's kosher. We call that Ra. What's wrong with that? Animals do that all the time. What is it? If a person mates because they're attracted and it's mating season, animals do that all the time. What's the problem? If a person gets angry and feels that in self-defense they want to kill someone, they kill. What's wrong with it? Animals do it all the time. All the things we call Ra are not Ra when it comes to animals. They're natural. They're instinctual. That's how you live when you're in a survival of the fittest world. And it's all about you. That's how you live, and there's nothing wrong with it. But in order to be in that world where it's survival of the fittest, and it's all about me and what I need now, you got to go blind. As a human, you have to go blind to what you're part of, and why you're given these kochos, and what everyone else is part of, and all the semi-permeable membranes between us, because we're all part of one thing, and what our goals are. For a human, it's Ra, because we know more. For an animal, it's not Ra at all. The people that advocate and celebrate such a hedonistic lifestyle, they've gone blind. They are fundamentally irreligious. That is the death of religion. They've gone blind to where they come from and what they're part of and what their mission is, and therefore they're alone, and it's survival of the fittest, and it's about me and my pleasure now, and then they can act like the animals, and that's all fine because they're like the animals. They're just like the animals, and we read that in the Rambam. They're an animal in human form because they are not using their intellectual abilities that Hashem gave them for their perfection. They're not using it for that reason. They're just using their brain to help them rationalize and come up with strategies to do what they want to do like animals. See this? Does this make sense? That's called Ra. When we take our creative energy and we go blind to the big picture and we let ourselves do whatever we want to do because we're all alone here and it's survival of the fittest and it's me against you and it's what I want now, then it's called the Yetzer Hara. That which tempts us to do that is called the Yetzer Hara. Now, how do you love Hashem? With your Yetzer Hara and with your Yetzer Tov and Yetzer Hara.
Ra also is, you have Ra like true or broken.
We're going to talk about it, yes.
You also have Re'ah within.
Good. Okay, Bonnie, so Ra, this is a very good point. I was meant to, and it's actually here. It's right here. It's in here. Ra is from the word Ra'ua. When you talk about a chair that only has 3 legs, it's a kisei ra'ua, or a ladder that's not sturdy. It's ra'ua, it's unsteady, it's dilapidated. If you look it up in the Hebrew, in the alphabet, in the dictionary, it's dilapidated or broken down. Ra is the brokenness of a human being. It's a human being broken who can't do its job. They can't do its job. Ra means you can't do your job. You can't sit on the chair, you can't climb that ladder. It can't be used for what it's meant to be used for. That's Ra. When a human being goes blind and starts behaving like that, can't do what they're meant to do. They can no longer do what they're meant to do. Okay? So we have a lot of definitions here. We have Rasha, which means chaotic. We have Tzaddik, which means consistent. Okay? We have Rovet, which means waiting to be directed, waiting for direction. We have Ra, which means doesn't work. Tov is going to mean, it does work, it's sustainable. Ramban, we did this in the past. Ramban says, V'yar Elokim es, in Bereshis, after each day. Then it says, Hashem saw ki tov, that it was good. Ramban says, sustainable, forever, permanent. It will last, it will work. Whereas Ra, it doesn't work, it breaks. It's dilapidated, it's broken, you can't use it, can't do its job. These are the proper definitions of these words. So, now back to the beginning. What does it mean to serve Hashem with your shtei yitzircha, your two inclinations? Take your koach hayetzer. Number one, know that it can go in two ways. The intellectual, spiritual part of us, the neshama, that inspires us to think about big questions like where do we come from and why are we here, and helps us learn all these ideas. Direct your ambition to that and be excited, enthusiastic, and fill your mind with those things. Then at the same time, take all your drive and your energy and go to your physical side of you and take your desire for food and for pleasure and for procreation and for sleep and use it too, consistently. Be consistent for the same thing, to implement what you've learned. Your body's your vehicle. Use your body and you'll get pleasure while you're doing it, to implement what you've learned. Take the possibility of going to the Ra and being broken and dysfunctional, and serve Hashem with it. Don't let it go there. Take your koach hayetzer, which could tell you to be instinctual, and encourages you or tempts you with the promise that giving into your instincts will free you and make you smarter and stronger and happier, right? Take your Yetzer for that and appreciate, agree, admit, validate you have urges and temptations, but use them as tools. Don't give them a life of their own. They're rovates. They're sitting there waiting to get direction. Give them direction. If you don't give them direction, they will become monsters. Now, I want to just mention something that's so relevant to today, so timely. What I thought was absolutely brilliant, that is a modern day analysis, a little bit of what happens when the irreligious view takes over and people start seeing themselves and their own self-promotion and their own pleasure as paramount. More than that, when they lose the concept that we are all participants in Hashem's existence, and we are all together participating in each other's existence, and that the greatest pleasure is to participate in others' existence and let other people equally participate in your existence. When we start using other people, instrumentalizing other people, devaluing other people, what happens? It's an incredible piece in the op-ed page this Sunday in the Times, in the New York Times, okay? And it was by somebody called Ross Douthat. And it's called A Playboy for President. Now, I want to just tell you what he says. It's absolutely brilliant analysis. Says there were two revolutions that took place in the 60s in this country. One was the feminist revolution. Okay? The feminist revolution had some very important goals that it needed to achieve. And that was, now with the new technology and the birth control pill and the computer and all these various things, women were certainly equal or had the opportunity to get themselves educated, get careers, and advance in the world to be the president of the United States. Okay? The feminist revolution advanced some very important things, which we are all the beneficiaries of. And that is the ability of women to be self-sufficient, not be dependent, develop themselves, all kinds of good stuff. At the same time, what they advocated, the Gloria Steinem revolution advocated a devaluation of family, a devaluation of marriage, and a devaluation of children. Absolute devaluation, because these things could get in your way. So because there was this, again, not religious, there's no children don't participate in your existence, they're a burden. They take money, they take time, you can't develop yourself. Okay, you can have one child. But, because that's for your own self, for your own pleasure. But not as, so there's a devaluation of marriage too, devaluation of men. That relations in marriage is rape, and things like this. A devaluation of men. And the development of a woman who had her own ambitions in mind, who didn't need anybody, who didn't want to have children, who had career ambitions, who took the birth control pill. And wait a second, we all have urges, So along with the feminist revolution, clearly, and with the help of the invention of the birth control pill, sexual liberation, obviously. So you had these women not getting married, not looking for children, free, developing themselves, and sexually liberated. That was revolution number one, and the product we see today, we have one running for president. The absolute product of the feminist revolution. She's the dream. Woman running for president, wife of a president, etc. Okay. At the same time, there was another revolution taking place. And you might argue that it was a reaction to the feminist revolution. And she doesn't say that, but it seems to me, my opinion. And that was the Hugh Hefner revolution. That was the Playboy revolution. You know what that was? These women, no. We want women who are compliant, and they're the centerfolds, compliant, toys that we can do whatever we want. They're not. We don't want these competitive women who are taking our places at work and taking our places in the college and don't need us and bossing us around and telling us we're ogres and we're domineering. No, we want these little pretty little toys who do everything for us, and they're passive and they're for our pleasure. Again, that type of woman isn't participating in the man's existence. They're a tool. They're totally utilized. It's instrumentalized. Just like the man in the feminist revolution isn't participating, he's in my way. So both of them, there was no religion. This was the death of religion. And this is the promotion of self. One devalued men, one devalued women. Okay? What happened with these two revolutions? Who did better? The Hugh Hefner revolution did very well among who? Who is the ones with these type of women? The women who are willing to dress like this, and when women are willing to play this game and be these. That's he says here, the blue collar workers. That's the uneducated. That's the lower end. These people they're the alpha male with the compliant woman who plays this game and dresses like this. They got this so-called, they were the beneficiaries of this revolution. But the men who were more educated and were more developed and had careers, they didn't find those women. The women they were working with were the feminist women, who are not going to be the Hugh Hefner women at all. They were not interested in that at all. They got these women who were the feminist women. Okay? So now what you have is a bunch of men. Now, some other factor here, which these feminist women, okay, this feminist revolution that devalued men and took away their jobs and the places in college and all of that, what that led to was the emasculation of men, the feminization of men, the wimping of men who didn't know what their job was, who became very feminized, who had lost ambition, who lost a sense of drive because they weren't the leaders of the house. And today, now what do you have? You have very accomplished women who are not attracted to these wimpy men. You have that all over, even in our circles. Okay? Then you have on the other side, highly educated, developed man who doesn't have the Hugh Hefner centerfold anywhere. They're not there. They're not in their life unless they pay for it. But they're not really real for them. Instead, they got these women they can't stand, okay, who are devaluing them and who are not being compliant at all. So now you have the dream. You have somebody running for president who's the alpha male, who's accomplished, who's got the woman who is the Hugh Hefner model, okay, Playboy model. And what happens is, this is like the dream. But who are the supporters, he writes? The supporters are the blue-collar workers, okay? What about the rest of the men? They're angry. They were lied to. Women don't come in that variety. Not in the upper societies. Not in the higher societies. They don't get these women. They get, like we said, competitive women who are giving them a hard time, okay? So there's anger. There's rage. And then you see this certain anger against women, which you also see in, anger against women, rage, putting down women. This is what these two movements led to. Both are godless. Both are without religion. One leads to probably the more well-established, broad-based one is the feminist revolution that really did success in its model, and the other one is this imaginary world that most men do not have. And most men who have it are either very, they're like we see, They're not functioning in the higher, more powerful circles, and the ones in the powerful circles don't really have it, except for one or two people, and everyone else is very angry about it. And there's a lot of rage and a lot of frustration and a lot of anger at women. This is what's happening. The bottom line is, both of these are not functional situations. Okay? Both are without, as we know, and this is all the talk in all the media today, no morals, no values, no integrity, nothing to point to your children to say, oh, be like that's a good role model. All right? This is what happens. This is the state we're in. It all comes from one basic flaw. The death of religion, the death of seeing that what we're really part of. We're part of God, and we're all in it together, and we have a mission. Break that down, and everything goes crazy, as we're seeing today. So our job, okay, is to restore that, to speak about it, to know it, to teach it to our kids, to be confident about it. I wish everybody Hatzlacha in this test. Now there's an extra paper here on Tubav because we didn't get to talk about it. And Shabbos Nachamu, by the way. Nachamu, I just want to mention this. We're being comforted. Our korban is because we lost sight of it. We didn't get to where America is today. But we lost sight of our mission. We instrumentalized the mitzvahs. We instrumentalized the Torah. Right? We lost sight of our real mission. And today, this Shabbos is Nechama. We can always repair it. There's always a second chance. Just open your eyes and everything goes back in order. All right, everyone, have a good Shabbos.